One thing that interests me about our common reading for this summer, Mountains Beyond Mountains, is that it raises some philosophical puzzles. Many of us react with surprise at just how much obligation Farmer and his co-workers seem to have to people in Haiti and Peru and around the world, even though those people are very far away. That we don't feel that people that far away we have the same kind of obligations to as we have towards people who are very nearby us. This experience of learning about people like Farmer challenges us because we recognize that we are in a position to affect the lives of people very far away as we're connected to them through the internet and through organizations that work far away. We wonder what we should do for people far away, or whether we can ignore them because they're far away. For many philosophers, including, for instance, Peter Singer, this has created a puzzle, a philosophical puzzle about human nature, that the very fact that we are surprised by what Farmer and his colleagues do is itself puzzling. So the first piece of the puzzle is that on reflection, most people don't think that distance changes our moral obligation to people. So, for example, if you walked into the control room of a space mission to the moon, and you saw your worst enemy walking across the screen on the moon, you might think, no one will see me. I can press this button and release his air and be done with my worst enemy. But nearly all of us will say, no, that's murder. It doesn't matter that that person is 240,000 miles away on the moon. I still have the same obligations not to harm him or her. If he or she on the moon were running out of air, and I could just press a button to save him, I similarly ought to do that too, even though he or she's quite far away. So that suggests to us that distance doesn't matter to our moral obligations to others. The second piece of the puzzle is that if we were to find that our next door neighbors, people that we wave to as we go home at night and as we leave in the morning, we're suffering for lack of basic food or medical supplies, if they were suffering from awful diseases that could be cured, or if they were, for instance, eating mud cookies because they didn't have food to feed themselves and their children, we would think, they're our next door neighbors. We ought to help them. There they are. We hear them crying out and want to save them. There are people in Haiti and in Peru, people that Farmer and his colleagues deal with, who are in just this situation. People in Haiti who are eating dirt cookies and mud instead of food. Even though we recognize that there are people in that situation, we think, I don't have to do anything about that because they're 700 miles away in Haiti. The distance we have from others doesn't change our moral obligations to them. And this creates a puzzle. We don't do anything, and yet it seems like we ought to, given the other pieces. So in our philosophy class, we try to work out, how do we solve this puzzle? What is it that we ought to do? Faced with the recognition that there are people in Haiti and in Peru and elsewhere in the world who are suffering in this way. I look forward to discussing these puzzles with students because I think that there's not a simple lesson in this book so much as there is a series of very difficult questions that it raises for us to consider.